we've been studying the last few lessons about Abraham and Sarah and all the goings on between them and God promising them a son for an heir that would bless all humanity. And they getting older and older, and how they decided to help God out a little bit, and that wasn't what God had planned. And so now Sarah at 90 years old and Abraham at 100 years old, they finally have a son whose name is Isaac. And Abraham does everything according to what God tells him to. He circumcises him on the 8th day, which is what they were commanded to do. And then Ishmael began to make fun of the younger child, and Sarah decided it kind of makes her mad, and so they send Hagar and Ishmael away. And of course, Abraham doesn't want to do that because it's his son. But they send him away, and God goes ahead and tells them that he's going to make a great nation out of him. What happens to them after he turns away? Now he's really generous. You know, this guy has got more land than he can, more cattle and sheep than the land will sustain. He's got riches out, the wazoo, so to speak. And what does he give Hagar and his son?
Water.
A bottle of water and some bread, basically what we'd say today. It says mine says a skin of water, because that's something totally foreign to us. Give him a bag of water and a loaf of bread, and said, "Be on your way." And they run out of bread and run out of water, and Hagar said she can't stand to see the son die, so she just gets over out of the way a little ways, so she won't see him die. But yet God intervenes, and they find water. God provides water for her. But then, not long after Abraham finally gets Isaac here, then God says, take him up on this mountain and sacrifice him. That's one thing that's totally against everything that God ever intended for people to do. Remember the Israelites, after they kept going back into the idol worship, and your especially your King James versions will say that they caused their children to pass through the fire. That means they cooked them. They cooked their kids as a sacrifice to these gods. Well, that's what God's asking Abraham to do. Take him up there and offer a sacrifice. Take the wood and the fire and all this stuff, and they make a journey to the mountain that God has appointed for. One interesting thing that I noticed and if any of your scripture, if your versions are any different, I'd like to know. It talks about Abraham offering his only son. Well, he's not really he's the only son of promise, but he's not really his only son, because they already had one. But he sent him away, yeah. But still, he was his son. And if you read far enough and long enough, we will. If we keep going, we'll find when Abraham dies, he comes back and helps to bury Abraham. Ishmael does. But he calls him his only son. What is the parallel about Abraham offering his son? What can we compare it to? God offering his son. So when you stop and look at the whole scheme of things, God did not ask Abraham to do anything that he was not willing to do himself. This is we used to have a teacher talk about taps and anti-taps and all this stuff, and I stayed confused about which one was tap, which one was anti-tap, but maybe Leland could have straightened me out on it. I'm not sure, but he's shaking his head no. And it wasn't Leland that taught it, but anyway. But this is something that's in the Old Testament, and we can find there's something that relates to it in the New Testament. And that Abraham offered his son, and God offered his son.
Only difference, God spared Abraham from having to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't actually have to go through with it.
He had him tied down and on the wood and had his knife off.
He was willing. I wasn't saying that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
God spared him having to do that,
Yeah.
but he went ahead and offered his son.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Well, we were talking about the same son here that was, God furnished something else for him to sacrifice.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Isaac. Yeah.
I'm getting ahead.
No. You're just now catching up in any way. Yeah. It's Isaac. Yeah. It's the same. It's one they waited till he was 100 years old to get, and now God wants him to go out and to offer him as a sacrifice, to kill him.
So he furnishes a ram.
Furnishes a ram instead. But Abraham has done everything. He's got the wood on the wood stacked up, and he's got the boy on it and tied up, and he's fixing to cut his throat. He has a knife drawn, and God stops him. But he was going through with what in the New Testament it said, in one place it talks about that Abraham had faith that God could raise him up.
And some folks say it's hard to be a Christian nowadays.
Yes.
What if you're trying to serve God back then?
Yes. Yeah, we got lots of people that want to take in part of the old law and parts of this and parts of that. But if they really stopped and looked at the old law, it was very difficult. For one thing, it was designed for the Jewish nation, for one thing. And then the second thing is it had all kinds of laws and bylaws and things that people are doing today. In that day and time, if you were caught doing that, they just take you outside town and throw big rocks at you till they killed you. All they needed was 2 witnesses. It was immediate. But you've got so many people who they haven't researched it, and they think the 10 Commandments is it. They think the 10 Commandments is the old law. Well, that's just the starting place. That's what the law is based on, is those 10 Commandments. But then you start with the law. Huh? It was impossible to keep up with all of it. Yes.
God and Christ knew from the beginning the change, because that's what Christ was born for.
Yes.
To change the law. The law was a schoolmaster to bring us to Christ.
You're right. Take a few weeks and go to Leviticus and read the whole book of Leviticus. Read a chapter or two a day, whatever is best for your pace, and look at it, and you'll find all the stuff that they could or couldn't do, and all the penalties for doing things they weren't supposed to. And it's just page after page after page. So the Ten Commandments is just a starting place. But the law was very strict and very cumbersome. You know, on Sabbath days you can only travel so far. You couldn't build a fire, you couldn't cook, you couldn't sew. They were allowed to do no work at all. In fact, they accused Christ when he healed people on the Sabbath. Well, he's working on the Sabbath day. Well, Jesus said, is it better to do good or evil? He said, if you've got a lamb or an ox stuck in a ditch, are you going to wait till the next day to get him out? No, because he'll be dead the next day. If it's Sabbath day, you've got to get him out.
The thing of it is, he never violated the law. He violated their conditions that they had added to the law.
You're right.
But he never violated the law.
Yeah. See, this is what they accused him of. Oh, you're working on the Sabbath day by healing somebody. They failed to see the significance of that person being healed, something that was happening that was not possible under normal circumstances.
If you really look at the restrictions on the Sabbath, there weren't restrictions on being able to provide for that day.
Yeah.
There were restrictions on being able to do things on the Sabbath that were for the purpose of gain.
Yeah.
Or making a living, that type of thing. But as far as being able to, provide, he picked grain on the Sabbath to eat. Picking the grain did not violate the law. It violated their tradition.
Right.
Well, then in Deuteronomy, they caught a man picking up sticks on the Sabbath. And
Just a minute, I can't hear you.
in Deuteronomy, they caught a man picking up sticks on the Sabbath.
Sabbath sticks on the Sabbath,
Took it to Moses, and Moses talked to God, and God said, stone him, take him outside the tent and stone him.
Right. Picking up sticks on the Sabbath. But he talks about Friday being the day of preparation. They got ready for the Sabbath day, so they didn't want to leave anything not taken care of, because they prepared to rest for a day. So they had to get everything ready the day before. Yes.
They were on the Sabbath, they were only allowed to walk, travel. I think.
Quarter of a mile.
Yeah, I read an eighth of a mile. I read a quarter of a mile. It talks about, I believe it's Mount Olive being a Sabbath day's journey from Jerusalem. So some people have added, on how far that is, and I'm not sure. Bob, you know how far a Sabbath day's journey was exactly, or?
Not exactly, no.
See, I read an eighth of a mile. I read a quarter. Not very far, anyway. Not very far at all. Chapter 23, it talks about the death and burial of Sarah. Now, Sarah lived 127 years. These are the years of the life of Sarah. Sarah died in that name I can't pronounce, and mine's got in parentheses, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham went in to mourn for Sarah and weep for her. Then Abraham rose before his dead and spoke to the sons of Heth, saying, I am a stranger and a sojourner among you. Give me a burial site among you, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. Then the sons of Heth answered Abraham, saying to him, Hear us, my Lord, you are a mighty prince among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our graves. None of us will refuse you his grave for burying your dead. So Abraham arose and bowed to the people of the land, the sons of Heth. And he spoke with them, saying, If it is your wish for me to bury my dead out of my sight, hear me and approach Ephron, the son of Zohar, for me. He may give me the cave of Machpelah, that's the way I pronounce it, which he owns, which is at the end of his field. For the full price, let him give it to me in your presence for a burial site. And Ephron was sitting among the sons of Heth, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the hearing of the sons of Heth, even of all who went into the gate of the city, saying, No, my Lord, hear me. I give you the field, and I give you the cave that is in it. In the presence of the sons of my people, I give it to you. Bury your dead. And Abraham bowed before the people of the land. He spoke to Ephron in the hearing of the people of the land, saying, If you will not only please listen to me, I will give the price of the field, accept it from me, that I may bury my dead there. Then Ephron answered Abraham, saying, My Lord, listen to me. A piece of land worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between me and you? So bury your dead. In other words, what's the difference? $400. Let's say dollars. We understand dollars. It's worth $400. What's that between me and you? We're free. We're friends. We've been allies. You remember, they don't have them. You can't call up the highway patrol or the county sheriff when somebody tried to steal something. They had to have their own guards. They had, even though they had lots of stuff, sometimes they had to fight to keep it. He said, You just have the field. It's worth $400. What's that between me and you? But Abraham had been in this land all these years, and he didn't, with all the stuff he had, he still didn't own any land. He just wandered around and kind of like free range, I guess you'd say today. Just wherever the land would sustain the animals. That's what he did. But he had gained people, servants, and lots of stuff. And they say, Man, you're a prince among us. You're a rich guy. And you've also been fair with us, basically. But it reminds me, years ago, there was not a custom, not a right word, but a kind of a way of life in this part of the world where people were too proud to accept charity in many cases. No, you're not giving me anything because I'll make it on my own. I don't need it. I don't need charity. I don't need this. Don't need that. And many times the only way to make things right or make things available to people who were very, very much in need was simply to give them a job or something to do. That's the only way that you couldn't get them to accept a gift, a free money. You don't have anything to buy for food. Here's the money to buy food. Well, but if you gave them a job and they worked for a week, then that's the only way they get along. But that's how proud people were in this part of the world. They didn't want to accept any kind of a free gift. I've told the story before of mine and Phil's grandmother had gotten down with arthritis and couldn't walk anymore. And Benny's dad, Ben McDaniel, came and brought a wheelchair for her and was going to give it to my grandpa. And no, he wasn't taking it. So, and my dad said, finally, Ben said, I'll tell you what, I'll loan it to you. And when you don't need it anymore, you can loan it to somebody, and that made it all right. He didn't take it as a free gift. He just loaned it to him. But they were good friends. But that's kind of like this deal here. They were good friends already. he wasn't going to take charity. But since it was just a loan, well, it'd be all right, you know. You know, you can be too proud, but also I think that's something maybe lacking a little bit in today's society. That there's too many people looks for free stuff. Just give me something, because you give them something, they'll give me something else, you know. But you know, we can't let our pride get in the way and not let other people help us when it'll do them good too to help us. But we have to be careful not to let our pride get in the way of stuff. Verse 16 of chapter 23 says, Abraham listened to Ephron. Abraham weighed out for Ephron the silver which he had named in the hearing of the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, commercial standard. So Ephron's field, which was in Machpelah, which faced Mamre, the field and cave which was in it, and all the trees which were in the field, they were within all the confines of its border, were deeded over to Abraham for possession in the presence of the sons of Heth, before all who went in at the gate of the city. After this, Abraham buried Sarah, his wife, in the cave of the field of Machpelah, facing Mamre, that's Hebron, in the land of Canaan. So the field and the cave, as in it, were deeded over to Abraham for a burial site by the sons of Heth. And so it remained in their possession for hundreds of years, because they didn't sell it. If you'll remember, whenever Jacob died in the land of Egypt, said, "Don't leave me here." So they had a great procession, and the Pharaoh let them leave, and they left and carried him all the way back and buried him in this same place. And this is quite a little bit longer down the road, you know. But this is the only possession we have that I have to remember that says Abraham actually owned something as far as land is concerned. God said, "I'm going to give you this whole place. I'm going to give it to your kids, basically, to your ancestors, your descendants, not ancestors, your descendants. We'll give it to all them." Chapter 24 talks about Isaac and Rebekah. Now they did things a little different back then than we do today. Today we have courtships and we have dates and we break dates and we get, you know, and then the parents kind of done a little bargaining and a lot of dealing. You know, Jacob ended up working 14 years to get the woman he wanted. You know, how much is that woman? How much is she worth? Well, she's worth 3 goats, 2 camels, and 4 horses, you know, or whatever, you know. And if you got it all right at the gate, you can't have her, you know. That kind of thing. It's a completely different society than what we have today. Of course, you got to remember that in that society, women had very few, or if any, rights at all. You know, very few, or if any, rights at all. They were considered as property in many cases, like many societies. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that's the way it was. And it's, I say, things are completely different today on that part.
You might say Christ came to set women free.
Yes.
They
Okay.
used to be, their husbands used to be bosses.
Yes. Yeah, it's a whole new deal now. A whole new deal. But, yeah, like I said, that's the way it was, you know, that, and Abraham doesn't want Isaac to have any of the women that's around there, and he goes back and gets one of his cousins, basically. And it's not long there when you talk about the old law a while ago, what is God forbids a lot of this stuff. Abraham was married to Sarah, which is half sister, and under the old law, that wasn't, you couldn't do that. She's your next of kin. Here he sends back to his folks. They left, and they go to find a wife for Isaac. And she leaves and comes across several hundred miles of desert and what have you. And they make it the rest of their life. We need to load the horn, so I guess we're through for that. Let's start there in chapter 24 next time.